Say goodbye to the fish, Dad. My daughter Ashley whispered as she shoved me off the boat. My son-in-law Timothy just stood there grinning like he'd won the lottery. Their plan was simple: steal my $3 billion fortune and make it look like a fishing accident. But when they got home that evening, I was sitting in my leather recliner with a very special surprise waiting for them. My name is Richard Stone. I'm 68 years old, and I built stone manufacturing from nothing into one of Florida's biggest construction empires. But let me back up and tell you how a perfectly normal Tuesday morning led to me plummeting into the Gulf of Mexico. I should have seen it coming. After my wife Margaret died from cancer 2 years ago, things felt different with Ashley and Timothy. Colder, more calculating. But when Ashley called me personally that morning, not through some assistant inviting me for what she called a celebration fishing trip, I was desperate for any sign that my daughter still wanted her old man around. "Dad, we want to toast the quarterly profits," she said, her voice warm with what I mistook for genuine affection. "Just the three of us, like when I was little." I'd been recovering from a minor heart procedure for 6 weeks, and honestly, I was lonely as hell. So I dressed in my lucky fishing shirt, the one Margaret always said brought me good luck, and drove my pickup to the marina. The boat was beautiful, a 45-foot deep-sea fishing vessel that probably cost more than most people's houses. Timothy greeted me at the dock with what felt like a performance, while Ashley watched from the deck with a smile that should have sent up red flags. "Isn't she gorgeous?" Timothy asked, gesturing to the boat. "We're thinking of taking her to the Caribbean next month." What he didn't mention was they'd bought it with money I'd loaned them last year for Timothy's consulting business, $2 million, that I was beginning to suspect had never seen the inside of any legitimate company. The first hour was pleasant enough. We sailed into calm waters about 12 miles out, the Florida coastline growing smaller behind us. Ashley served cold beer and talked about their plans to expand the house. My old house, which I'd signed over to them after Margaret died because I thought moving to the condo would be simpler. But then Ashley started asking questions. Casual ones at first, about my will, about the trust arrangements, about whether I'd considered making changes to simplify things for them. "It's just that probate can be so complicated, Dad," she said, refilling my beer with a little too much enthusiasm. "We want to make sure everything's taken care of when the time comes." That's when I noticed Timothy filming me with his phone, not openly, but holding it at an angle while pretending to check messages, getting me on camera while I was drinking, while I was talking about financial matters. Building some kind of evidence. The pieces clicked together like a blueprint falling into place. The heart procedure I'd had, they'd insisted on handling all my paperwork afterward. The power of attorney documents they'd brought to the hospital, claiming it was just temporary, just to help with bills while I recovered. The way my financial advisor had stopped returning my calls directly. "Ashley," I said carefully, setting down my beer, "I'd like to go back to shore now." That's when her mask slipped completely. "I'm afraid that's not going to happen, Dad." Her voice was different now. Harder. Like when she was 16 and got caught shoplifting, except this time the stakes were a lot higher than a teenage tantrum. "See, we need to have a conversation about your health," Timothy added, stepping closer. "About your memory issues after the procedure." Memory issues? My mind was sharper than both of theirs combined. I'd built a manufacturing empire by remembering every detail, every contract, every handshake deal. "That's ridiculous," I said. But even as I said it, I realized how carefully they'd orchestrated this. The boat was miles from shore, no other vessels in sight. Just the three of us, the ocean, and their plan to either convince me to sign over everything or make it look like the old man had an accident. "Dad, we're trying to help you," Ashley said, but her eyes were as cold as a Florida winter. "We can do this the easy way or the hard way." I stood up slowly, my chest still aching from the procedure, but my mind crystal clear. "And if I refuse?" That's when Timothy smiled. Really smiled for the first time all day. "Well, elderly man, recent heart surgery, probably took too many medications, got disoriented on the boat." He shrugged. "Tragic accidents happen all the time. I'd raised this girl from diapers, taught her to ride a bike, paid for her college, her wedding, her house, and now she was standing there nodding along while her husband threatened my life. You're both insane if you think you'll get away with this." "Actually, Dad, we've thought it through pretty carefully." Ashley pulled out a folder of papers. "Your signature here, transferring all assets to us immediately for your own protection, and we all go home happy." I looked at the documents, at my daughter's expectant face, at Timothy's phone still recording. Then I looked at the ocean, vast and dangerous, and somehow less frightening than the two people who were supposed to love me. "Go to hell," I said. That's when Ashley moved behind me. "Say goodbye to the fish, Dad," she whispered, and gave me a shove when I was off balance, looking out at the water. Over I went, khakis and all, into the cold gulf. As I hit the water, I heard Ashley shouting, "Dad? Oh God, Dad." But I also heard Timothy's voice, lower, talking to someone on the phone. "Yes, we'll need you to file the emergency petition first thing Monday morning." He's clearly not competent. Then the water closed over my head, and I had bigger problems than their betrayal. I'm a strong swimmer. Margaret and I used to do laps at the country club pool every morning. But the cold shocked my system, and my clothes were dragging me down. I kicked off my boots and broke the surface, gasping just in time to see the boat speeding away. They were actually leaving me there to die. That's when I spotted the commercial fishing vessel about a quarter-mile away. Captain Benjamin Hayes was exactly the kind of man who'd risk his own safety to save a drowning stranger. About 60, weathered from decades on the water, and possessed of the kind of moral compass that seemed to be missing from my own family tree. "Holy hell, what happened to you?" he asked, as he and his crew hauled me aboard their fishing boat. I was shivering uncontrollably, my teeth chattering so hard I could barely speak. Benjamin wrapped me in a blanket that smelled of salt and diesel, while his crew started the engines. My family, I managed between chattering teeth. They, the boat. "We saw them take off like a bat out of hell," Benjamin said grimly. "Didn't look back once. What kind of people leave someone floating in the middle of the Gulf?" The kind who inherit $3 billion if I'm not around to stop them, I thought. But out loud, I just said, the kind who aren't really family. Benjamin radioed the Coast Guard while his crew wrapped another blanket around me. "Coast Guard, this is the Mary Catherine. We've got a man we pulled from the water about 15 miles southwest of Tampa. He's conscious, responsive, but needs medical attention." "Wait," I said, grabbing Benjamin's arm. "Please don't let them know you found me. Not yet." Benjamin studied my face with the sharp eyes of someone who'd seen enough of life to recognize when someone was running from more than just cold water. "You in some kind of trouble?" "Yes, but not the kind you're thinking." I took a shaky breath. "I need to get to shore without anyone knowing I survived. Can you help me?" Benjamin looked at his crew, then back at me. "Should and shouldn't are funny things," he said slowly. "Sometimes doing the right thing doesn't look like following the rules." He keyed the radio again. "Coast Guard, this is Mary Catherine. False alarm on that rescue." Turned out to be debris in the water. All clear. As we headed toward a small private dock, Benjamin knew. I told him everything. About Ashley and Timothy, about the money, about the documents they wanted me to sign. Benjamin listened without interruption, his expression growing darker with each detail. "So they figured they'd rather be rich orphans than broke kids with a living father," Benjamin said when I finished. "Apparently so. What are you going to do?" That was the question, wasn't it? I was officially dead as far as Ashley and Timothy knew. They'd go back to shore, call the authorities, report me missing overboard, play the grieving family while they executed whatever legal documents they'd prepared. But here's the thing about being supposedly dead. It gives you options you never had while you were alive. "I'm going to let them think they won," I said, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. "And then I'm going to destroy them." Benjamin grinned for the first time since pulling me from the water. Now that sounds like a plan worth helping with. Benjamin knew a woman who ran a small bed and breakfast near the coast. No questions asked. Cash only. Mrs. Catherine Moore was a tough-looking woman in her 70s who took one look at my bedraggled state and immediately started heating soup. "Honey, I've been running this place for 30 years, she said, ladling chicken broth into a bowl. "I've seen people running from all kinds of things. Long as you're not bringing violence to my door, you're welcome." That evening, while Ashley and Timothy were presumably filing police reports about their tragically missing father, I sat in Mrs. Moore's kitchen wearing borrowed clothes and planning their downfall. Benjamin had agreed to be my eyes and ears. His boat was legitimately used for fishing charters, which meant he was often around the marina where they kept their boat. He could monitor their movements, listen to their conversations, maybe even do some investigating of his own. "Here's what I don't understand," I said, sipping my third cup of coffee. "How were they planning to make this legal? Even if I died accidentally, There are procedures, investigations. That's what's been bothering me too, Benjamin agreed. They had to have help, someone on the inside. That night I made a list of everyone who'd had access to my financial information since Margaret died. My lawyer, my accountant, my financial advisor, the bank managers, the trust officers. Someone had been feeding Ashley and Timothy information, helping them plan this. Mrs. Moore had an old computer with internet access, and I spent hours reading news reports about the tragic boating accident that claimed the life of prominent businessman Richard Stone. The articles painted a picture of a grieving family dealing with an elderly man's declining mental state after his heart procedure. Timothy was quoted extensively talking about my confusion and memory issues in recent months. Ashley had apparently sobbed to reporters about how worried they'd been about my safety. They'd even included a photo, me at Ashley's birthday party last year, looking slightly bewildered as I held a drink. I remembered that moment. I'd been confused because no one had told me it was a surprise party, and I'd arrived expecting a quiet family dinner to find 20 strangers in my former home. But in the photo, I just looked lost and elderly. Exactly the image they wanted to project. The obituary was already online. Richard Stone, beloved father and grandfather, passed away in a tragic boating accident while enjoying an outing with his devoted family. Even in death, they were spinning the narrative of my supposed mental decline. The funeral was surprisingly well attended for someone who was supposedly suffering from memory problems. I watched from across the cemetery through binoculars Benjamin had borrowed, hidden behind a maintenance shed that gave me a perfect view of the proceedings. Ashley had spared no expense. Premium casket, empty, of course. Elaborate flower arrangements, professional programs with my photo on the front. She and Timothy stood at the graveside accepting condolences from friends, business associates, and people I barely recognized. What struck me most was how genuinely sad some of the mourners looked. My neighbor Eleanor was crying openly. My golf buddies from the country club had come. Even Dr. Peterson, who'd handled my heart procedure, was there looking somber. These people genuinely cared about me, and Ashley and Timothy were accepting their sympathy while knowing full well I was alive. See anything interesting? Benjamin whispered, crouching beside me. Besides my daughter giving an Oscar-worthy performance? I lowered the binoculars. Look at who's not there. Benjamin adjusted his own binoculars. Like who? My financial advisor, Nicholas Coleman. My lawyer, Jeremy Walsh. My accountant, Daniel Foster. I lowered the binoculars, pieces clicking into place. The people who would normally be at the funeral of a client worth $3 billion are nowhere to be seen. Maybe they're busy with the estate stuff. Maybe. Or maybe they can't look people in the eye while they're part of this scheme. After the service, I watched Ashley and Timothy work the crowd like politicians, shaking hands, accepting hugs, playing their roles perfectly. But I also noticed how quickly they ushered people away when anyone started asking detailed questions about my final days. That afternoon, Benjamin drove me back to Mrs. Moore's in his pickup truck. I'd been officially dead for 4 days now, and I was starting to understand the unique advantages of my situation. I need to get into my old house. I told him as we pulled into Mrs. Moore's driveway, that seems dangerous. They're probably staying there now. Not according to the property records I looked up this morning. They kept their own place. My house has been sitting empty since I moved to the condo last year. I pulled out a piece of paper where I'd been making notes, but here's the interesting part. Someone's been paying the utilities, electricity, water, heating. Someone's maintaining it. Why would they do that if no one's living there? Good question. I think it's time I found out. That night, Benjamin dropped me off 3 blocks from my former home in one of Tampa's better neighborhoods. The house where I'd lived with Margaret for 35 years, raised Ashley, hosted countless barbecues and holiday celebrations. The house I'd signed over to my daughter because I thought family meant something. I still had my key. Ashley had never thought to ask for it back. The house felt different. Not empty exactly, but wrong somehow. I made my way through the familiar rooms using a flashlight Benjamin had given me, being careful to avoid the windows facing the street. The living room furniture was covered with sheets, but I could see that new pieces had been added. Expensive pieces. A leather sofa that cost more than most people's annual salary. An entertainment center that definitely wasn't there when I'd lived here. In the kitchen, the refrigerator was stocked not with basics you'd keep in a house you occasionally visited, but with fresh food. Expensive food. Imported cheese, organic vegetables, premium steaks, the kind of grocery shopping that suggested regular occupancy. But it was the home office, my old study, where I found what I was really looking for. The desk was covered with documents, legal papers, financial statements, and most damning of all, a detailed timeline of what they called the Richard Project. My own name turned into a code word for my elimination. I photographed everything with a disposable camera Benjamin had given me, my hands shaking with rage as I read through their plans. They'd been working on this for over a year, carefully documenting what they claimed were signs of my mental deterioration after Margaret's death. Doctor visits where they'd coached me to seem confused, social situations where they'd set me up to look disoriented, the heart procedure that had given them the perfect opportunity to claim I was no longer competent to manage my affairs. But the most chilling document was a letter from someone signed only as AR, apparently one of their co-conspirators. The timeline needs to be accelerated. Richard's been asking too many questions about the power of attorney documents. If he gets suspicious and goes to a lawyer independently, everything falls apart. I recommend moving to Phase 3 within the next 2 weeks. Phase 3, according to the timeline, was my death. I was photographing the last document when I heard a car door slam outside. Headlights swept across the front windows and I heard voices approaching the front door. Ashley and Timothy, coming home from their grief performance. I quickly gathered my things and headed for the back door, but I could hear their conversation as they entered. Think the Peterson woman bought it. She was crying too hard to think straight. Besides, what's she going to investigate? Dad fell off a boat. It happens. What about the will? How long before we can access everything? Probate opens Monday. AR says we'll have full control of the accounts within 6 weeks. I slipped out the back door and into the garden, my heart pounding. But as I crept along the side of the house toward the street, I heard something that stopped me cold, a baby crying. There was a baby in my former house. Ashley and Timothy had never mentioned having a child, which meant there was more to this story than I'd realized. The baby changed everything. Benjamin picked me up at the corner 15 minutes later, and I was still shaking as I climbed into his truck. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said. "Worse. I've seen my replacement." I told him about the baby, about the documents, about the mysterious AR who seemed to be orchestrating everything. "A baby," Benjamin repeated slowly. "They never mentioned having a kid. Never. Ashley always said she and Timothy weren't ready for children. Said they were too focused on their careers. The photos were devastating when we got them developed the next morning. Clear evidence of their year-long conspiracy, complete with timelines, fake medical reports, and financial projections showing how they planned to spend my money. But the most disturbing photo was the last one, a birth certificate I'd almost missed, tucked under other papers. Baby Stone, born 3 weeks ago. Mother: Ashley Rodriguez. Father: Timothy Brooks. But I'd been around Ashley just 5 days ago on that boat. She definitely wasn't recovering from childbirth. "This birth certificate is fake," I told Benjamin, "completely fabricated. So whose baby is it?" That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in Mrs. Moore's guest room staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything I'd learned. My daughter and son-in-law had spent over a year systematically destroying my reputation, planning my murder, and forging documents to steal my fortune. And now they had a baby whose existence they were hiding from the world. The next morning, I made a decision. I called an old friend from my construction days who'd gone into private investigation work. Within hours, I had professional help tracking Ashley and Timothy's movements, financial transactions, and the mystery baby. The investigation revealed the truth within 48 hours. They'd purchased a newborn through an illegal surrogacy operation run by a network of lawyers who specialized in elderly asset theft. The birth mother was a 17-year-old runaway named Sarah Collins who died during delivery, under suspicious circumstances. My grandchild was an orphan whose real mother had been murdered to provide Ashley and Timothy with an heir to justify inheriting my fortune. But here's what really broke my heart. The baby was innocent, a beautiful little boy who deserved better than being a pawn in their twisted scheme. That's when I decided it was time for Richard Stone to rise from the dead. I was sitting in my old leather recliner when Ashley and Timothy came home from their latest meeting with their criminal lawyers. I'd positioned myself so I'd be the first thing they saw when they walked through the front door. The look on their faces was worth 5 days in the Gulf of Mexico. "Hello, kids," I said pleasantly. "How was your meeting?" I hope you didn't sign anything important while I was away." Timothy actually screamed, like a little girl who'd seen a spider. Ashley just stood there with her mouth open, staring at me like I might disappear if she blinked hard enough. "Surprised?" I asked. I have to say, the reports of my death were terribly premature. Though I did enjoy reading my own obituary. The nanny appeared from the kitchen carrying the baby. She'd been waiting as we'd planned, ready to witness whatever happened next. "Mr. Stone asked me to bring the baby out," she said nervously. "He wanted to meet his grandson." "His grandson?" Ashley found her voice, though it came out as a croak. "That's right, though I understand his real name should be Robert Sarah Stone, after his grandfather Robert and his birth mother Sarah, who died bringing him into this world." The silence in the room was deafening. "Sit down," I said, my voice carrying the authority that had once run a multi-billion-dollar company. "Both of you." They sat, still looking shell-shocked. "Let me tell you what I've been doing for the past week while you've been planning my funeral and spending my money." I pulled out the manila folder of evidence, photographs, financial records, legal documents, recordings of their conversations. "This is Amanda Richardson," I said, pointing to surveillance photos. "She runs a network that helps families like you accelerate their inheritances by murdering elderly relatives. I have documentation of at least 12 other cases over the past 3 years." Ashley had gone very pale. "That's impossible, is it?" "Because I also have documentation showing you purchased this baby through an illegal surrogacy operation that resulted in the death of his 17-year-old mother." I looked directly at both of them. "Sarah Collins died so you could have an heir to justify stealing my life's work." The recording device I'd hidden was capturing every word, every admission, every piece of evidence they were confirming through their shocked expressions. "What do you want?" Timothy finally managed to ask. "What do I want?" I laughed, and it wasn't a pleasant sound. "I want my money back. I want this baby properly adopted by someone who will love him and tell him the truth about Sarah Collins. I want Amanda Richardson arrested for the serial killer she is, and I want you both to spend a very long time thinking about what you tried to do to your own father." "And if we cooperate?" Ashley asked. "If you cooperate, I might consider not pressing charges for attempted murder. The fraud charges, the conspiracy charges, the accessory to murder charges, those are out of my hands now. But attempted murder is my choice. They chose poorly." Instead of confessing, Ashley and Timothy decided to double down. They hired professional killers to finish what they'd started, but this time they wanted to make sure the body was found. That's when my old friend from the construction business revealed he wasn't just a private investigator. He was working undercover for the FBI, investigating the exact criminal network Ashley and Timothy had gotten involved with. The final confrontation was perfect. Ashley, Timothy, and Amanda Richardson all gathered in my former home, planning my second murder while federal agents listened to every word through hidden recording devices. When Amanda Richardson confessed to running a network that had killed 37 elderly people across 6 states, the FBI moved in through every door simultaneously. "Amanda Richardson," the lead agent announced, "you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, wire fraud, elder abuse, and racketeering." Richardson tried to run. She actually bolted for the kitchen, probably hoping to escape through the back door. She made it about 6 feet before 3 agents tackled her to my former hardwood floors. Ashley and Timothy just sat there in shock as agents read them their rights. The trials took months, but the sentences were worth the wait. Ashley got 25 years, Timothy got 20, and Amanda Richardson got life without parole. The entire criminal network was dismantled, and over $200 million in stolen assets were recovered. But the most important outcome was little Robert Sarah Stone. I legally adopted him with the full support of the court system and Sarah Collins' extended family in Maine. They were grateful that someone was willing to raise Sarah's son and tell him the truth about his brave young mother. I'm 68 years old now, and Robert Sarah is a remarkable little boy who knows exactly who he is and where he came from. He knows his birth mother was a brave teenager who wanted him to have a good life. He knows the people who were supposed to be his parents tried to use him in a scheme that cost his real mother her life. And he knows that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you most are the ones you have to protect yourself from. As for Ashley and Timothy, they're still in prison. Ashley writes me letters, sometimes trying to explain why she did what she did, asking for forgiveness, claiming she was manipulated. I don't write back, because here's what I learned during my week as a dead man. Family isn't about blood or money or inheritance. It's about showing up when someone needs you, protecting the vulnerable, and choosing love over greed every single day. Robert, Sarah, and I have that kind of family now. The kind where no one gets pushed off boats, no one steals trust funds, and no one has to die for someone else to get rich. Thanks for listening. Your story matters too.